Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into the life of the Buddha. But we aren't just going to look at this as some dry timeline or an ancient biography. Instead, we're going to examine his life as a deliberate, incredibly practical map for ending suffering. We can really think of it as a pattern of liberation.
Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start with ancient India's religious landscape, then move through his birth and the four sites, his renunciation, awakening, teaching the middle way, and finally his parinibbāna. Basically, we're going to trace his chronological life, pausing at the major events to really unpack their profound doctrinal meaning.
All right, Section 1, Ancient India's Religious Landscape, Grounding the Historical Figure.
To really understand this journey, we first need to drop right into the 5th century BCE world. Imagine a vibrant, rapidly urbanizing landscape in ancient northern India. It was completely filled with shifting kingdoms, newly expanding trade routes, and these incredibly intense philosophical debates. This is the exact environment where the historical Buddha lived and taught.
So the crucial point here is that Gautama, which is the Pali name for the historical Buddha associated with the Sakya clan, was a real flesh-and-blood historical figure. He was situated in a very specific time and place. Yet, as you'll see, his ultimate teachings aimed way beyond those regional borders, reaching toward a universal liberation that honestly still resonates just as strongly today. He entered a religious world that was, essentially split right down the middle. On one side, you had established Brahmanical traditions, focused heavily on ritual, Vedic learning, sacrifice, and maintaining social order. And on the flip side, you had these radical renunciant movements, focusing entirely on asceticism, deep meditation, and personal liberation. Gautama stepped right into this fierce field of debate, prompting a very practical question for us all. How do we actually understand and put an end to suffering?
Which brings us to Section 2, Birth and the Four Sites, the problem of suffering. Beginning with his traditionally remembered birth at Lumbini, Gautama lived a famously sheltered youth. Legend actually says his royal father went to extreme lengths to actively hide all signs of suffering from him. So imagine the shock when he finally ventured outside his palace walls and experienced the four sights. It was a series of 4 escalating realizations. First, he saw old age, exposing our basic human vulnerability. Second, sickness, revealing our physical fragility. Third, death, the ultimate proof of impermanence. But finally, he saw a renunciant, and that sparked the possibility of a path forward. These are the exact moments he stopped avoiding the truth of suffering, which, let's face it, is the absolutely necessary first step for any spiritual awakening.
Section 3, Renunciation and the Search, Leaving the Palace.
Having seen the profound fragility of life firsthand, Gautama makes a radical decision that sets this entire pattern of liberation into motion. He actually departs the palace in the dead of night to begin his search for freedom. And leaving behind incredible wealth, pleasure, and royal status isn't about hating the world, not at all. Rather, it's about recognizing that those temporary comforts can simply never secure final, lasting freedom.
In Pali, this profound act of renunciation is called pabajja. It literally means going forth from the household life into homelessness. It represents a total, complete transformation of values. Gautama's pabajja became the ultimate model for the restraint and discipline that both monastic and lay practitioners still strictly follow today.
But his search wasn't instantaneous. It was a rigorous trial and error process. Acting as the bodhisattva, which means a being on the path to awakening, he first studies with master meditation teachers. He actually masters their incredibly refined attainments, but realizes, hey, suffering still exists, so he pivots. He practices severe austerities, pushing himself so far that he allegedly survived on just a single grain of rice a day. Finally, having realized neither of these extremes worked, he makes a massive conceptual breakthrough.
And this brings us to the discovery of the middle way. What's absolutely crucial to understand here is that the middle way is not just some vague, easy compromise. It's an incredibly precise, highly disciplined path of ethics, concentration, and wisdom. It actively avoids the 2 unhelpful extremes, sensual indulgence on one side and violent self-mortification on the other.
Moving right along to Section 4, Awakening under the Bodhi Tree, the Breakthrough. Accepting some much-needed nourishment and regaining his physical strength, Gautama now sits beneath the Bodhi tree for his pivotal breakthrough. It is here that he achieves Bodhi, which translates to awakening or enlightenment. Now, this isn't just an intellectual understanding. It's a profound, liberating realization that fundamentally destroys the roots of greed, hatred, and delusion. In this exact moment, he transforms from a seeker into the Buddha, the awakened one,
proving to the whole world that liberating realization is entirely possible.
And crucially, his awakening wasn't just some private, mystical experience he kept to himself. It generated a highly practical, actionable doctrinal map, the Four Noble Truths. This forms the absolute core of Buddhist insight. First, you have dukkha, meaning conditioned existence is unsatisfactory. Second, the origin, showing that craving gives rise to suffering. Third, the cessation, proving the ending of craving is possible. And finally, the path, which is the Noble Eightfold Path leading directly to that cessation.
Section 5. Teaching the Middle Way. Turning the Wheel.
Because his awakening was complete, and most importantly, teachable, the Buddha spent the next 45 years sharing this exact roadmap with the world. He delivers his very first sermon to his earliest disciples at the Deer Park in Isipatna. This is a monumentally historic event because it officially forms the very first Sangha, or monastic community, when one of his followers finally gains the Dhamma eye.
In this specific teaching, known in Pali as the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, which translates to the Discourse on the Turning of the Wheel of Dhamma, he lays out the middle way and the Four Noble Truths for the very first time. He literally sets the wheel of his teachings into motion.
Over the next 4.5 decades, operating as a flexible teacher, a sage, and a liberated one, his compassion extended to absolutely everyone across northern India. We're talking monks and nuns, laymen and laywomen, kings, merchants, Brahmins, and ascetics. He tailored his wisdom perfectly to fit each individual listener's unique capacity and situation, teaching everything from basic generosity all the way up to profound dependent origination. And finally, Section 6. Parinibbāna and Lasting Legacy, the Final Days. After 45 years of relentless, compassionate teaching, we reach the end of the Buddha's physical life, an event profoundly remembered in the Parinibbāna Sutta. This final passing is known as parinibbāna. It means the final nibbana, a passing completely beyond the cycle of renewed rebirth after death. What's absolutely fascinating here is that before he left, he instructed his community to rely not on a newly appointed leader, but entirely on the Dhamma Vinaya. The teaching and the discipline itself, the path itself, was to be their ultimate guide.
On his deathbed, he left his followers with a sobering final exhortation. He said, "Conditioned things are subject to decay. Strive with heedfulness." It's a powerful, stark reminder of impermanence and a direct call to action that still resonates thousands of years later for anyone studying his teachings.
Today, his life is not merely admired as a dusty piece of ancient history. It is actively studied, chanted, remembered through monuments like stupas, and imitated by millions of Theravada Buddhists all around the world. The memory of this historical figure continues to be a living, breathing model of practice.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. His life was a deeply human confrontation with suffering that ultimately became a definitive map to awakening. Through the practice of Bodhanasati, which means recollecting the Buddha's qualities, how might his deliberate pattern of liberation help you navigate your own path and the inevitable challenges in your life today? Take a moment to really think about that. Until next time, keep learning.